Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Strong. It's really exciting to introduce you to my next guest. Lama Abu Ghali is not just one of the strongest women that I've ever met. She has been my role model and the role model of my 2 daughters. So it's just so beautiful to have her here because Strong is all about introducing real women that will talk about their life stories in the hopes of creating circles of strong female role models for our younger generation. Welcome, Lama. Thank you for coming and being my first guest
Oh,
on Strong.
thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that you've decided to undertake this project. I'm really proud of it.
It is a big project. You were with me throughout the journey. You knew Danya. You knew what it was like for me to have a teenage daughter. You have 2 teenage sons, but you come from a lineage of women, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. We have all of my aunts were very well educated. My grandfather always said that women need to be educated, and that's how we grew up in my family. That if you had money and you had a boy and a girl, you'd educate the girl and not the boy.
That's interesting. Why?
Because they always said that with a man, no matter what he did as a job, it wouldn't be shameful. But for a woman, if she didn't have an education, she would have to work in menial jobs that would put her in positions that would make her potentially uncomfortable or subordinate or submissive. And that's not something that you wanted for your wife or your daughter. And that was, I think, the impetus behind that thought process and why my grandfather decided to educate all his daughters.
That just brings us quite naturally to the beginning. Because we are not who we are in isolation, is one of the theories that I really believe. We are not who we are in isolation to where we are right now. We are an accumulation of our life experiences. So, who is Lama Abu Ghali?
Um, I don't think that that's a very easy question to answer because as a woman, there's just so many parts of you. There's the person that you are and what you want to be and what you want to achieve as an individual. There's you, the daughter, and then there's you, the wife, if you're married, and then if you have kids, then there's you, the parent. So you're just multifaceted. So it's about understanding what part of the person you want to be talking about.
Who do you want to talk about today?
I think me, the person, because I think it's more all encompassing rather than me, just the parent, or me, the daughter, or me, the wife. So me, the person, encompasses all of that because all of those things are things I wanted to achieve in my life. I wanted to have a marriage. I wanted to have children. I wanted to have a career, and I still wanted to be a good daughter to my parents.
What does it feel like to be you, Lama, the person, on a typical day?
First word that comes to mind is always exhausting because there are so many things that you are constantly thinking about. And that's one of the things I always tell my husband. I said, when you drive home, what are you thinking about? Nothing. I mean, I'm on the phone chatting with my mom or my dad or my friend. And I said, but that's not how most women function. I said, when we're driving back from our jobs or whatever it is we were just doing, what we're doing is we're planning the next 30 minutes, the next 60 minutes, the next 3 days, the next 20 days, and our minds are always working on this timetable, and it's exhausting. I said, so even when we're driving, all we're doing is planning in order to ensure that everything is running smoothly. And I don't think that I'm alone in saying that. I think that most of the parents and the women that I talk to, especially those that work, have that same issue.
You're so right. That drive home is, I don't know about you, but I try to put the music louder and louder in my car, and it's almost like I'm trying to drown out all the thoughts that are going through my mind. How do you disconnect on that journey from wherever you're going to wherever you're going?
I've started to take on actually my husband's advice is just get on the phone and chat to somebody, stop the thought process, in its tracks. Because turning on the music, I'm just going to drive way faster than I should. So that's an issue. So I just decided, you know what, that's the time I'm going to catch up with my friends. I'll use that. I'll put my earphones in and I'll, have a call and I'll just chit chat and relax rather than sit and think about everything that I still have to do.
So great. So much to think about. And things that young girls are not taught at school. And we find that probably even with ourselves, who taught you how to normalize that challenge of being all those roles and being you?
I think it's something that each person does on their own. It's more of an individual journey because over the last couple of generations, women have been told you can be anything you want to be, you can do anything you want to do. But to be honest, workplace didn't actually cater to that. So even though you could do whatever you wanted to do and be whoever you wanted to be and study and get into the career that you wanted to get to, the workplace didn't give you the flexibility to also do everything else that was still expected of you. So yes, you were told you could do all this, but the expectations were that you still were a wife and a parent and always the primary caregiver as the parent. So you're not given, more lenient rules at work because you had this primary role elsewhere that you also needed to take care of. So even though we've come a long way, I just don't think the workplace has caught up to us yet.
Definitely not. Moving into Lama, the person again, thinking about all the roles that you have in your life, the mother, the wife, the daughter, the granddaughter, the friend, the sister. Nobody's watching. How do you spend that time alone?
There's a lot of apps on my phone that I can spend a lot of time on. And I think one of the things that I like to do is they keep telling you as you get older, your memory fades. So you should play those word games that keep your brain from completely falling apart as you age. So that tends to be my strategy when I have some time alone, is actually go on my phone, play on those apps for a little bit, and try to disconnect. Keeps you a little bit more focused on something else.
As a career woman, I find it really hard to disconnect. I'm always, like you said, on that drive home, I'm always thinking of the next thing that I have to do or the thing that I didn't do. Do you find time alone difficult for you to disconnect and unwind? So you were still saying that I'm working on my apps, trying to work on my, my personal growth. But how do you just detach and be Lama?
There's a 1.5 hour appointment every 2 weeks at the nail salon.
Excellent. We need to say things like this.
That's completely mine. And everybody's like, oh, why do you do that? Why? You can get them done while you're getting your hair done. I said, but that defeats the purpose of just having that thing, one thing, focusing on yourself. And you're not trying to achieve still again yet 10 other things. So even when you're going to relax, we're supposed to be doing our hair and our nails and I don't know what all at the same time. Why do I need to do that? So I keep telling myself, don't double book your appointments. Actually give yourself that 1.5 hours where you can't touch anything, you can't see anything, you can't do anything. Somebody is completely in control of you. And you just actually have to sit there quietly and relax.
And I love that you said that you do this weekly because I think growing up, nobody tells us, but it's kind of an understanding that as women, we're taking care of everybody, especially as mothers. We're fixing and taking care of everybody. And we almost feel guilty to do something for the simple pleasure of doing it for ourselves. So doing that weekly manicure, doing your hair, going shopping, just for you, what does that feel like? Do you feel that you can do it, or do you find that you're still struggling to justify doing it?
I think that I think it's also one of those things that's it's about whatever phase you are in life. I think when my children were much younger, trying to get away for that hour or two to just do something for myself, there was a lot more guilt associated with it because I was, that the few hours I had on the weekend that I could spend with them, I was choosing to myself over somebody else. And so it always came with a larger feeling of guilt. Now that the kids are older, they're teenagers, and they're off on their own, they're completely capable of ignoring me for multiple hours at a time. I feel less guilty about doing all of these things for myself. So I think it's about, what cycle of your life you're in. And as they get older, I think you automatically become less programmed to worry about, I should be doing this with them, or I should be spending more time, or am I giving them enough of my day? Because they're not making you feel bad about it, because they're not running home when you come home and say, "Oh, mommy, I missed you." They're not even there.
And in talking about being a teenager, it's so different now being a teenager than it was when I was growing up, and I'm sure when you were growing up. But if you could go back to those younger years and meet Lama, the 16-year-old or the 15-year-old or the 14-year-old, what would you remind her to be, do, or have, knowing what you know today?
We had a discussion about this with a lot of my friends in high school, and I remember one person had a really interesting answer. He said, "I would tell my teenage self to care less."
Oh, tell me what that means.
And so I asked him. I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "We cared too much about what other people thought of us, about how we fit in, and we never actually took the space to care about what we thought of ourselves. We always cared so much about how we were perceived by our social circle or by our teachers or whatever it was. And our generation didn't really get to explore as much as this generation has gotten the chance to about who they were as people during their teenage years."
Do you feel that teenage girls today are more prepared for being an adult woman than we were growing up?
I don't necessarily think that's true, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot more expectations on their shoulders than we had. For us, our generation was, if you went to college, great. If you didn't, it was fine. If you married well, that was a good thing. Our daughters are being told, no, you can be independent and you can do this and you can do that. And there's the expectations are actually higher. And you're not told how to do that. And you're not told what you have to sacrifice to do that. Just told you can do that.
So much to do. I feel that exhausting all over again. I almost feel that teenage girls today are so wired to achieve their full potential, but biology is still biology. And there's the whole, will we have children? Won't we have children? There's the time clock ticking.
Freeze our eggs now.
We do. So what are some of the challenges that you face today? Going back to who you are at a core.
I think that one of the things that actually has struck me over the last few weeks, because I'm now in the process of changing jobs. So for the first time in a very long time, I've decided that I'm actually going to take control of this process. All my previous roles were basically my ex-shareholders saying, this is your next project, this is your next project. So for 15 years, I've been lucky enough not to actually have to go out and pursue an actual opportunity for myself. And over the last few months, I've decided that, this is time to take a bit of a break and actually look around and see what else I could do with my career going forward. And so in meeting a few people and putting myself out there, I found that the workplace and the interview process hasn't actually changed. And I was extremely surprised when somebody who said that they were the head of diversity and inclusion, literally every other sentence out of his mouth was, and I could get fired for saying this.
Oh.
It was the most politically incorrect interview I've ever had. And I went, how can this person hold such a high position, be the head of diversity and inclusion, and yet still make the statement that even if you were useless, I would have to hire you?
Wow.
So we are 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm still hearing this.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel very sad. And I'm thinking, I think your company needs to retrain you. We replaced you completely.
But do you feel that it's about gender? Is it about, we are in 2020, but we are still living side by side by a generation of people who grew up in a different time, and re-educating them is harder than it is to just accept the challenge.
Yes, and I think that as hard as they're trying, our generation of men, I don't think they're there yet. One of the other statements was, fathers of daughters, are more likely to come on board with the diversity challenges that the organizations are facing and be champions of these causes. And despite the fact that I believe that could potentially be true, I still feel that they have an issue with the women that are currently there. They want it for their daughters, but they don't necessarily want it for the current set of people that they're working with.
So would you say the challenge that you're facing today is I am living in 2020. We are a generation where women can do more, be more, have more, but we're still struggling with the issues that we would have had 20 years ago.
Yeah, I do believe that is still true, and you see it. You see it in the media, the hashtag Me Too movement, etc. You wouldn't think that with all of the supposed diversity, inclusion, and re-education of organizations and people in organizations that in this day and age we would still be facing issues that we're facing.
Okay, that's a whole different show. We definitely need to get a panel of women talking about maybe different women of different age groups. But Strong is about normalizing challenges and issues that women of different generations are having with the hope of helping younger women and young girls to look at somebody and say, she gets me, or I feel like I'm not alone on this struggle. So let's talk a little bit about some of your life experiences. If you could reflect on your life, on the story of your life, what would you say was the hardest trauma challenge that you've experienced so far?
I think mortality and coming to face with the fact that your parents are, eventually going to pass, and then being faced with the fact that my father was given a stage 4 cancer diagnosis a few months back, and then having to step back and say, I need to spend more time. This is what's going to be my priority right now, and not really having, you don't really think about it. Your parents are there, you're expecting them to be there forever, and then you're actually you're given a time limit that you have to deal with. And I think that's the hardest thing to come to terms with, that there's nothing within your power to make it better.
I love that you brought this up because I think as humans, we know that time is not in our favor, but we almost don't believe that it can happen to us. It's kind of like it happens to them, but we've got time. How do you overcome the emotional obstacles in what you said, making that time right now with your father, but also learning that we don't always have time on our side? How much time do I have, and what do I want to do with my time?
I think one of the things that I always used to tell my husband, I said, I can't influence too many things. So I just like to influence what's around me. And I don't worry too much about if I didn't achieve this big thing or that big thing. What I want to know is I want to go to bed every night and know that whatever person I had an interaction with that day was either left better for it or that I didn't do harm. And I think if you just try to live each day in a very simple manner rather than give yourself too many lofty goals that may or may not be achievable, I think it's just easier.
I like that. Make it better or not have made it worse. What do you wish that you could do to help the woman that you were, the woman that you are, and the woman that you want to become? Because I believe that it doesn't matter how old we are. Our life experiences teach us where we were, how we've changed, but more important, where we want to be heading. Where has your trauma prepared you? What has your life experience taught you that's going to make a difference? Lama.
I think the most important thing that I always had to keep top of mind, well, this has been going on with my father, is that I only have control over X. So as long as I'm taking care of whatever I do have control over, I can't sit and fret about everything else that I can't do, because it's counterproductive. It takes away from any type of extra energy that you might have to put towards anything else. And it doesn't serve anybody. And I think one of the most important things as well is that you always have a support system. I've always been very lucky having you in my life as one of the strongest women I've ever met, to always lean on. And I remember that this specific experience showed me how living that life of just not harming or at least leaving that person a little bit better off actually comes back. And I'm sitting and I'm a million miles away. I'm in the US. And all these women start messaging me. Like one person tells the next person, Lama's in the US. She's, spending time with her dad. She's left Dubai. And I just keep getting like literally dozens of messages a day of people checking me on a daily basis. And I went, oh God, I haven't talked to her in months, or I haven't talked to her in months. But those people remember that at one point in time when they were going through something, that you were actually there. You don't have to do anything. You just have to listen. That's basically all it is. All you have to do is be present and in that moment when that person is in need. And then it all comes back. It's karma.
I believe that connection, as you described, support and connection are probably the most amazing human experiences. So Lama, Strong is about helping young women on their journey, but it's also about helping us on our journey as well. How can we support you on your Strong journey?
I think it would be interesting for people to have more open conversations. We come from a culture here in the Middle East, at least, where there's a lot of things associated with shouldn't be said, or this is too personal, or this is private, or this should not be shared in public, this is a family matter. And I think that's one of the things that hinders us from our healing processes in the first place. It's because we are not able to be completely forthright and honest about the trauma that we're facing, about how it pains us, about the truth behind a specific situation that occurred in our lives, and so the people in front of us don't know what they actually should be giving us in return in order to support us, because they're not actually fully aware of the full picture. And that's, I think, very sad. And as women, I think that we need to be very honest with each other about what it is we're really feeling and what was the actual story behind it. And if we're not sharing those background stories because we feel they're too personal, or it's too scary, or it's going to portray our family in the wrong light, or spread rumors. That's the other thing that they like to talk about here. I don't think that we're serving each other or ourselves.
And I see this as the biggest barrier to communication between mothers and daughters. It's generations that are raised differently. Today, young girls want to be transparent. Social media alone, the whole idea of being an influencer or being online is about showing you what my life looks like every day. And the connection that they have with their moms is, we shouldn't be saying that in public, or why did you say that in public? So having these conversations, like you said, I'm happy you did, because I believe that as well, these deep conversations help normalize issues and help support women of all age groups on this journey.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Lama. I can't tell you how special it is to have you as my first guest, in the true honor of authenticity and being genuine and transparent. You have been the number one woman in my life that has allowed me to, because I think it's about being given that permission. It's not just about being able to have it, because if the person that you're in conversation is not giving you permission to be open and honest, it's hard to be open and honest. So thank you for allowing me and giving me that permission, and for coming on the show. And that brings us to the end of episode 3. It is quite the journey. I hope you're enjoying watching these episodes. Join us next week when we bring my daughter, 14-year-old Aya, who's going to come and share her journey that we call Strong. Thank you.